To site plan 23 to 25 Fanaras Drive, T.H. Glennon. Good evening.
Thank you for having me. My name is John Sarkis. I am a hired project manager by T.H. Glennon, the applicant. A few weeks back, I had submitted a request for a minor modification to a site plan review permit previously issued by this board a little less than a year ago. The purpose of the main purpose of the request is to request that a condition imposing the installation of a sidewalk be removed, stricken from the permit, and another condition be added to allow that the stated building heights on the plans presented with the application be amended slightly. One building was proposed at, I believe, 34 feet, and one was at 28 feet, and we just want to have different building heights now. So I'll start with the first request, which was to eliminate the condition of the sidewalk. I'm guessing, or I'm hoping that members of the board received my letter and reviewed it and understood that it was in fact a request to strike that condition for a sidewalk. Is that the case?
Yes, it was in the, yeah, we had that in time for last.
Oh, in the last meeting, yeah, that's right, we did.
I had a conflict at the last meeting.
That's okay. Yeah, but we did get the letter.
Okay. And it was understood that it was, I understood that the way I wrote the letter was to strike that entire paragraph, and I didn't delve into it there, but I just want to make sure that it was clear and that you hopefully had an opportunity at that time to give some thought to the request. And before I go into my thought process on this, I do want to apologize for not having addressed this matter sooner with the board within the 20 days appeal period after the permit was initially issued. The night of the last public hearing on this application was sometime in the third week of June. I was not able to attend the final of what was 3 meetings in this site plan review process. I was in the hospital for about a week with a blood poisoning situation, and could not be here that night. I did recently take a look at the tapes to see what went on that night. It was. I also need to continue on. I'm sorry. The permit was issued a few days after I came out of the hospital on the 27th of June, which was the day my mother passed away. And then I had other personal matters with a very sick brother. And for the 20 days after the permit was issued, I didn't even look at the permit. Never even gave it any thought. So the appropriate matter would to, or the appropriate method would to have been to come into this board immediately after the issuance of the permit and discuss this with the board. But I was not in any mindset to do that. And if there was no chance that that condition would have been removed at that time, I would have appealed the permit, taken the appropriate course of action. So the appeal period expired long before my head was able to get wrapped around this matter. So rather than build the building and refuse to put the sidewalk in, I'm here tonight to have hopefully a good discussion to see if there's really a reason to put this sidewalk in at all. So I spent a little, I guess even before that, I'd like to get a sense of the board. If the board has given thought to, it's a very simple matter. Does it really make sense to have a sidewalk in, and is the board willing to strike the condition? So I'd like to get a sense of the board, if the board is at all interested in striking that condition. If the board is not willing to commit, verbally right now, then I'd like to give my rationale as to why it would make sense to strike that condition.
You can certainly continue, then we can discuss, hear your rationale in addition to the letter.
Okay.
The letter, well, what about this letter from the town manager?
Yes, we did have the board tonight. We received a letter from Town Manager Neil Harrington, requesting, really in addition to and on behalf of the applicant, to strike condition 6 for the sidewalk, and also to strike the contribution to the town sidewalk fund.
I think it probably makes sense to hear the rationale.
Yeah, I think it would be best to have you go ahead and state that, and I just wanted to let everyone know, and for the people at home, those watching, that there is a letter here from the town manager as well, but you can continue. And sorry to hear your hardships during the past year.
Not looking for any sympathy. I just want to explain why I didn't take the appropriate course of action at the time. I was out of commission.
Sure.
Literally.
That's sure. That I totally understand.
Yeah. Okay. There's really one main reason why we don't believe it's just to have a sidewalk condition imposed as a matter in connection with this site plan review application. The planning board's authority to impose off-site improvements as a condition is limited to issues of health, safety, and welfare presented by the use and development of the subject. The subject parcel is a roughly under 2 acre building lot in the industrial park. The proposed use is largely warehouse related with very few employees. And it is our position that the use of the premises and the development of the premises present no issues to health, safety, and welfare, which necessitate, which is the word in the Town of Salisbury zoning bylaw, which necessitate the particular condition of a sidewalk. So, that said, I find it very difficult to accept the rationale that a sidewalk should be here at all. In light of the fact that there are no other sidewalks in the industrial park, and there will likely not be sidewalks in the industrial park, a sidewalk in front of this one lot seems to have absolutely no sense whatsoever. So that said, that's the primary reason. I'll leave all the other matters of, the applicants paid taxes here forever and all that. I'll leave all that out because it's all a sob story and it doesn't really matter. The fact is the project does nothing to necessitate a sidewalk. So I would ask on that basis that the board please reconsider and agree to strike that condition. I would also note that Mr. Harrington did copy me on that letter. He was nice enough to CC me that. I've read his very well-written letter, I must say. And I see that he has basically come to the same conclusion on the same basis.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure. Yes, Mr. Egan.
I think you're presenting an argument based on some sort of legal principle, which isn't really your justification for not wanting to do it. You're saying, am I legally required to do it? Yes or no? That's a different question. I think what the real reason is that you find it to be too costly to your client to go forward and add that to the project. That's the real rationale. It's not whether it's legally required or not. Am I correct in saying that?
In general, as a planning board member in my community myself, I can tell you that we think very, very deeply on matters of financial effect to the applicant, particularly businesses that are moving away from the Northeast.
Right, the only reason why I asked...
We do look at that.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to explain my question more. I'd be much more amenable to agree with an argument that it represents a financial hardship or a cost that your company is not willing to incur at this time, rather than trying to destroy the whole premise of the site plan review bylaw and get into that type of an argument. I don't want to go down that road. I hope we don't have to go down that road. But if the argument is in this particular condition, you don't feel that it's a cost that should be incurred by your business, which is the real reason. You know, it's not whether I can legally get away with it or not, or if I'm legally required. You're looking for a way to undo the requirement. So, because you don't want to put it in because it costs too much money.
Obviously.
Right. So, if you're asking for an exception for other reasons, I'd be much more amenable to that. If you're trying to dispute the entirety of the site plan review bylaw and the planning board's ability to attach conditions, that's a different argument.
No, I'm not trying to dispute the site plan review bylaw. The board certainly has the right to impose conditions when they're necessitated. And this, I believe this condition is not necessitated, and the cost associated with it is not necessitated either. So I agree with what you're saying. We don't want to put it in because we don't want to spend the money on it. But the fact is, I don't believe it's necessary as a result of the use, as a result of the development and use of the premises. I would think, from your point of view, that would be a better matter, because there are other conditions in here that we also feel are financially beyond what we'd like to do, but we've agreed with them and accepted them because we felt there was at least some benefit to it. So I don't mean to be, adversarial with you. I agree. You're right. No, obviously we don't want to spend the money on a sidewalk when it does nothing.
That's a debate that's been going on in the town for a long time. Part of our master plan says that the role of the town of Salisbury is boards should be to encourage the development of sidewalks throughout the town. You may make an argument this may be one of those places where it shouldn't happen. That's subject to interpretation. And I remember a very healthy discussion about that. What the habit of people in industrial parks to go out for walks at lunch, etc. I work in an industrial park. There are sidewalks in that industrial park, and people use them for exercise. It's a lot bigger than the industrial park we're talking about, but to just broadly say that sidewalks are not something that should exist in industrial parks, I would have to take exception to that. And if we don't try to implement the spirit of the master plan in the town, then we're not going to have sidewalks anywhere.
That isn't the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is that the project does not necessitate the off-site improvement, such as expanding a road because significant traffic is coming to the site.
You keep using the term off-site. Why is that off-site?
It's off the premises.
It's not on your property?
No, it's not. The sidewalk, the condition was that it be within the right-of-way. And the better way for the town of Salisbury to have sidewalks constructed in this industrial park is to have all the property owners agree to a betterment and put the sidewalks in throughout the entire park. I believe that this is unjustly placing a financial burden on one applicant.
Well, we try to include sidewalks on all applicants as part of the condition. And I think if you go back through the record, it's almost universal that we have placed that condition on it. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to make the same comments, but, there is a safety issue when this is now a public road, I understand, where it was private at one time. So you don't know who's going to drive through there or how much traffic you'll have tomorrow or next year or 2 or 3 years from now. Hopefully, you and many of the other companies there will be hiring more employees. And if that happens, there's going to be more people walking during their lunch hour. And there may be trucks coming in. So, as Mr. Egan pointed out, it is in our master plan, and that's why we try to get it as many times as we can in these situations, because the people of this town want sidewalks. They didn't say on residential property, just sidewalks everywhere. So I feel strongly that we did the right thing by doing this, because that is, I see it as part of our role to implement the master plan in any way we can. And I also have been to industrial or commercial parks where sidewalks do exist for the benefit of the employees during their lunchtime breaks. So I think it's a good thing for the whole park, and eventually I'd like to see all of the companies do it, and maybe betterments is a way to go, but we're not there at this point, so. Thank you.
Mr. Strobel, you have comments?
Well, I think, actually, Mr. Sarkis made a pretty good argument that, and I think it borders or revolves around the definition or the understanding of the word necessitate, because as the other members have alluded to, the idea is that people in industrial parks, employees, as it is, will want to walk if there are sidewalks, if they can. And I think in a way that necessitates that, we have sidewalks wherever possible in the industrial park. But I think you also made a very good point that the one sidewalk in front of your building really wouldn't help really help people to walk around the whole industrial park, but rather it might help a little bit in your spot. And you're right, that the better idea would be to put sidewalks in the whole industrial park in one fell swoop with some type of betterment, which I doubt that'll ever happen. So, but I'm swayed somewhat by your argument that maybe this is overly burdensome. But I would disagree that we can make exceptions to the site plan review bylaw on the basis of what people can afford, or what they think they can afford, or what they want to pay for, and what we think is required for safety and whatever else, and flood control and the other things, which is what we usually look at. I mean, if that was the case, we all know what kind of buildings would go up every time, the absolute cheapest possible with poor flood control and no sidewalks and who knows what else. I mean, that's just human nature, I think. But I'm tended to think that maybe this is something that we could. I would vote to remove that condition.
I just say, personally, I'm torn. I can see both sides. On one hand, I work for a company in an industrial park, not unlike the Faneras Drive project. Company has struggled considerably for the last 5 years in particular. So, from that perspective, I can understand the cost ramification. However, there is an inordinate amount of foot traffic in that park, and it's, in my opinion, a good chance somebody's going to get clipped before too long, because traffic gets upwards of 35, 40 miles an hour, and they go around curves and things, and people are walking 3 and 4 wide. So, but again, to the point of the betterment, it would, I can certainly see the point where that would be, better constructed as an entire project. But also to Mr. Strobel's point, that's probably not going to happen too.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question for the assistant planner. In lieu of building a sidewalk, he can contribute to the sidewalk fund, right?
Yes, that's also referenced in the decision. The sidewalk fund was created at town meeting.
Is the amount of contribution flexible?
Yes, the decision specifically says, I think,
I guess I mean negotiable. If he offered to contribute to the sidewalk fund at a amount less than less than the number we established, are we allowed to do that?
it says, the paragraph that Mr. Sarkis talks about striking says 5-foot wide sidewalks are to be shown on the plan in the frontage on Fanaris Drive, approximately 160 feet, or money contributed to the sidewalk fund per DPW standard. So,
Yeah,
what we've-
what I'm saying is, well, then, that DPW standard is a dollar amount per square foot, or how?
what we've heard from DPW is that it was $75 a linear foot, which included the curbing. So if the standard, so yes, the decision doesn't have a dollar amount.
I guess what I'm saying is, though, if he offered to contribute to the fund at less than 75, could we accept that?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any more. Thank you.
I just have one follow-up comment. This is in particular to Mr. Strobel's comment about what can be included or what cannot be included. I think as...
Say what? I didn't say that.
Why are we going?
No, well,
Doing that?
what I'm trying to get at is that part of the site plan approval process is a negotiation, and we weigh the benefits of all aspects of the project as it's presented. And I do think that the board has the leeway to...
We have the leeway to waive.
Exactly, to waive certain requirements, or to take into consideration the overall impact on the community in imposing certain conditions.
Under the portion of the bylaw that Mr. Sarkis quoted about
Right.
necessitating.
Other than the whole section, and where I'm going with this is I just don't want this to set a precedent. So what it says is review procedure hearing decisions. This is section 300-112, and the conditions, it does say in granting approval, etc., such conditions may include but are not limited to. So I think those are key words, are not limited to. And that's a subsection that says where the necessitated is referenced. So I think
Well, excuse me.
we don't have
I
limits.
went to a number of courses on this particular issue, and in fact, you can't just make, any condition you want just because you think it's a good idea. There has to be a reason, it has to be sustainable by the bylaw. And just because it says, not limited to, but I don't think that means you can just, pull anything out you want.
Right, and I think that we have in the past been very reasonable and tied in all the conditions to
Right.
the nature of the project.
And I believe that this condition was put there because it is a safety issue. And in fact, people would probably walk more in the industrial park if there were sidewalks. But as Mr. Sarkis pointed out, one sidewalk probably isn't going to do that. That's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, it would be good, though, if they would make at least a token contribution.
One sidewalk starts the process. That's the way I look at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that may be true. I just think my time on the board, we've tried to get people to put sidewalks in, and I can't even remember one that did, so the couple of subdivision plans that we approved where we asked for sidewalks, they've never been built, so we can't say that. And
There certainly have been several sidewalks, and there have been several contributions to the fund as well.
yeah, we have had contributions, I believe. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
May I?
If I may interrupt just for a second, we're up at 7:30 and we do have a public hearing at 7:30. Is it all right to delay just for a few moments and we'll try and wrap this up as soon as we possibly can? Thank you. Go ahead, sorry.
I'll read 300-112, subsection G, conditions. This isn't something described as other or not limited to. The condition is actually described right here. Requirements for off-site improvements to improve the capacity and safety of roads, intersections, pedestrian ways, water, sewer, drainage, and other public facilities which are directly necessitated by the proposed development. I agree, sidewalks are a nice thing to have. They're not necessitated by the proposed development.
Directly necessitated.
Directly or indirectly, they're not necessitated. They're a nice thing to have, but they're far, far from directly necessitated by the proposed development.
May I ask, Mr. Chairman, has this come up within this development before? Why weren't there sidewalks?
Well, it has with other locations in the site, yeah.
But not at the industrial park?
In that industrial.
No, it came up with the people next door. I
Andover
believe.
Healthcare.
Andover
has come up.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
And they agreed to put in a pathway, I believe, right?
Yes, that's right.
They have a pathway within their property to connect their parking lots to their front doors primarily,
Did that not?
more or less within the circulation of their. Just sit down, if you don't mind.
Did that not set a precedent?
It's not an off-site improvement, ma'am. It's an on-site improvement in their case. It's part of their own development. I believe that they had a benefit for it in that they had parking lots which are remote to their facilities, so it directly connected their parking lots to their facilities. It's not for public use, that sidewalk.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we grant the waiver request with the condition that the board send a letter to the town manager asking him to embark on a study of how best to facilitate walking trails within the industrial park. Walking trails or sidewalks.
Okay.
So granting the modification.
Well, I'd like to change it to a waiver of the side requirement for a sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay.
How do we?
I think you have to strike the condition. There's no condition in there's nothing that requires anybody in site plan review to build a sidewalk, so you can't waive the requirement because there isn't a requirement, right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, I think you need to
I'll change it to strike the condition.
Prior to closing, while you have the thought of the
I'll second that
motion made,
motion.
we have the item, do we have to do these two
You can do them
changes separate? Because we have the building height as well.
You can do them together or separate.
Okay.
Yeah, the request is whether, or at least in your decision, it says whether you consider it a major or minor modification. And it sounds like since you,
No, yeah, you have to.
but if you're saying to, strike the condition, then you're saying it's in essence a minor modification that doesn't need a public hearing. That's what it sounds like.
So you want me to change my motion to,
I'll withdraw my second if you'll.
Okay, if you want to withdraw and formulate.
Motion, I guess.
all right, so I would like to accept the client's application as a minor site plan review modification, granting approval to change the height of the buildings and also to eliminate the requirement for the sidewalk condition with the added request that a letter be sent to the town of Salisbury on behalf of the planning board Town of Salisbury manager, on behalf of the planning board, asking him to seek or embark on a study to how best to facilitate safe walking within the industrial park, either by a comprehensive sidewalk plan or walking trails.
Thank you. We have a
I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Mr. Egan, seconded by Mr. Strobel. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you
you.
very much.
Okay, it is past, I'm sorry?
We didn't do the height thing.
Oh, that was, yeah, that was,
Oh, that was,
the first item of the motion. Okay, it is 7:30 and beyond. I would like to thank